Okay, welcome to 302 CDE. This is Richard, and we're going to be working on character modeling today. And I'll be mainly looking at working from this worksheet here, which is the 302 CDE character modeling PDF. This is a video tutorial to try and help you understand some of the workflow. Okay, so let's open 3ds Max. Okay, so we're going to get started by creating a cube. So I'm going to go into Box. I'm just going to draw one out here in the center of the screen. I'll set my length, width, height all at 30. So now I'm starting with a proper square. Okay, and then I've got my length, width, and height segments, which I'm going to set them all at 4. Okay, so what we're going to do, just before we get this to an editable poly, we'll initially set up the position of the cube and set it to be central. So selecting 0, so my x, y, and z. Now I'm going to go to my modifier list and I'm going to select spherify. And the reason for doing this is when we spherify a cube, we get much more even polygon distribution in the geometry than if we were to create a sphere, which has its own unique geometry, which makes it very difficult to be able to create detailed character models out of. So let's have a look at this we've got now. So I'm just going to put edge faces on so I can see a little bit better. I'm also going to change the colour of the model. Just so everything's a bit clearer. Okay, so we've done this. We've got a sphere, a spherify attached to a box. So what we're going to do is right click, we're going to convert to editable poly. And we're also going to select the polygons along one side of the model and delete them, as we will be using the symmetry modifier later on. So what we're going to do now is just select the vertices, and we're going to do some very basic modeling to get the rough shape of the face. So let's start in the middle here, work in my left hand viewport here, and we're just going to push these back a little bit, and I'm going to pull these ones forward a little bit and down. And so I'm just really trying to get the very basic shape together at the moment. Well, we can worry about adding detail as we move along. Okay, so let's look at the general shape of the head now. It's a little bit too round. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a soft selection on the left hand side. And bring that fall off down. Bring that in slightly. Do the same down here. So flatten out that top of the head as well. Okay, reasonably happy with that. I'm going to bring this back section, start to pull that in slightly as well, in anticipation of when I make the neck in this area. Okay, the next section uses the connect tool to create something called edge loops, which is when we have a loop of edges going around a area of detail, in this case the chin, but it could be the eyes or the nose, the ears or whatever. And we know we need extra polygons in this area, so what we're going to do is use the connect tool to join all these together and create some extra polygons for us to play with. So let's see how this is done. So you can see here I've got this area of the chin here, which I want to be able to add some more polygons into. So I'm going to start selecting some edges by holding Control. And you can see I've selected edges in this loop here. So we then use the Connect tool, which will put them together like that and creates these extra polygons for me, which is great. What's not so great is we have a three-sided polygon here, which, as we know, are the enemy. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and get rid of that. We will lose some of the polygons we've created, but we'll still be able to add more detail. So I'm going to move to vertex mode. I'm going to go to target weld, and I'm going to weld that one to there, and that one to there, and obviously we've now exacerbated the problem with having two three-sided polygons now, but what we're going to do is we're going to remove that as well. So I'll select the edge tool, I'm going to select the edge down the middle of my two three-sided polygons, and I'm simply going to remove that. That means I now have more polygons to play with than I did before. I don't have any three-sided polygons. So I can now go into vertex mode, and I can start to have a little bit more fun with the chin area of my character. Just move out into my orthographic views to see what's going on. So I'll just expand my side view. And start to bring my chin forward a little bit. Okay, maybe a little bit extreme at the moment, but we'll get into some more detail on that a little bit later on. Okay, so we're starting to get there now. We're starting to be able to add detail, and let's move on to the next stage. Okay, the next section we're going to work on is the eye detail. I'm going to use much of the same technique of creating an edge loop, but we're going to have a few more extra problems here because obviously we're still creating three-sided polygons. We're also creating five-sided polygons, so we're going to have to do a bit more of a detailed fix on them than we did with the chin. So let's start doing this and we'll see how we get on. So go to edge mode. My selection's already made here, so I'm selecting around this area here, and then I'm going to use the Connect tool. So done that. I've created two three-sided polygons and two five-sided polygons, which is not ideal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on my snaps tool and make sure edge segment selected, turn off grid points, and I'll select that tool. And you can see now that my selection is drawn to any edges, which will make it easier for us to do the next thing, which is to insert a vertex on the center of these three-sided polygons, like that and like that. You can see I've got new vertices that have been added. So now what I want to do is deselect that, move over to vertex mode, turn the snapping off, select the top corner of my five-sided polygon and along my edge, and then I will use the Connect tool. You can see that's a four-sided polygon, that's a four-sided polygon, so is this here. As soon as we move this out of the way, you can see the four sides. So we've now replaced our three-sided and five-sided polygon with three four-sided polygons. So I'm just going to do the same thing down here, and I connect them, and can then start to think about the basic shape of the eye socket and how I'm going to start to build that, because we also need to be able to enclose this circle around here to be able to add detail into the eye socket, but we'll do that again a little bit later on. Okay, so the next section of this video we're going to work on removing the polygons in the neck area and creating that shape for the neck with a view to then extrude the neck out. We've got the basic neck shape. Okay, so let's jump into Max. And what we're going to do is think about, firstly, we'll have to look around our character and think about, okay, where is best to remove the neck? So we don't want to remove too much, but we also want to make sure we've got a large enough opening. So let's select polygons, and I'm holding control here. I'm looking at this area initially and thinking that will probably do it. Also remove that one if I wanted to bring this polygon out. So I think I'll go with that, so that makes me happy there. So I'm going to delete these polygons. And now the most important thing to do is to shape this area to be as organic and round as possible. So I'll take a few minutes here, just trying to make sure everything's shaped the way I want it to be before I do the extrude. Because it's far easier to make the change once and then extrude, rather than extruding and then trying to change the shape of the new polygons we've created. So obviously we've got some rather large polygons coming in here, and I'm not worrying about those too much at the moment, because I can always use the connect tool to add some more detail in a bit further down the line. Just want to make this basic shape of the neck before I extrude it. Obviously I'm a little bit time limited at the moment, so I'm not spending as much time as I would do in normal circumstances. We may end up with a slight problem here, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, reasonably happy with that. So we'll select the edge. In this circumstance, it's quite tempting to just hold shift, extrude all the way down. But this isn't how I'd necessarily recommend you do it, because you've got to think about the shape of the neck once we've done the extrusion. I think if you're going to animate this character, you're going to need a number of polygons to be able to play with as far as the flex and rotation of the character. So firstly, I'm just going to do a little bit of tidying up, a little bit of housework. This rather large polygon here as well, but we'll organise that a little bit later on. So I'm just going to start bringing these closer together. Reasonably flat area at the bottom of my first extrusion. Okay, so all right here. I'll do a line to centre a bit later on, which will help making sure everything's lined up as well as we want it to do. So we're being a little bit hindered here, but we've got extra large polygons at the front and back, but I'm not going to worry about them too much at this stage. Go back to edge now, we can continue our extrusion, and then we can just adjust the scale. Okay, now we're going to look a bit about face detail. So what we're going to concentrate on is just using edge loops to create some more polygons. in the facial area, and then I have a bit of fun trying to fix those 3-sided and 5-sided polygons that this creates. So let's jump over to Max. Okay, so you can see here I've already created my first edge loop around here. I've selected these edges, and now I'm going to create one that fits just inside it to be able to add a bit more detail. So let's see, I've made my selection here on the inside, and then I'm going to connect. Okay, so that's fine, but what you'll notice is we've got some 3-sided and we've got some 5-sided polygons, and we're in a bit more of a difficult situation than we were before. So I'm going to put my snaps on, which has still got my edge selection on, and then insert a vertex here and here. And jump over to vertex mode, and you can see now if I turn the snaps tool off and then move these around, make 4-sided edges to my loops, and I can then connect these up to using the vertices here. So I'll select those 3 vertices and connect those together. You see now 4-sided, 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 4-sided and 4-sided. So I've got all the 4-sided polygons that I need. So now I need to do the same thing on down here. So I'm just going to jump over to my edge tool, turn the snaps back on, set vertices there and there, turn the snaps off, go back to vertices, and then I need to select those 2 and my escape route over here, and then I'm just going to go and connect those. See now, there you have 4-sided polygons. Okay, in this next stage we'll be looking to create the nose using again the connect tool, but we're going to be creating some more vertices vertically on the head. So let's jump over to Max. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to select this bottom edge here, and we're going to ring that. So it selects all the way around the top of the head. And we're going to select the options tool in connect. And by default, obviously, we can connect with 1 line, but we'll do 3 here. We'll pinch these a little bit closer together. I'm going to move them across to where we would like them as well. So just along the centre line of the head. Remember, obviously, we're only going to be modelling 1/2 of the nose. So again, I'm just going to push these a little bit further. Move them back over to there. Okay, so once we're happy with that, we can start to think about the rough shape of the nose. And so on the side profile of my model, I've always started to think roughly what I'm going to do with the nose. But I'm not going to worry about it too much at the minute. So what I'm going to think about doing is fanning these out a little bit. Okay, so we've put these new vertices in to create the area we're going to work on the nose. So what I want to do now is think about how much you're going to start putting the nose in. So initially, I just grab these top 4 vertices and bring them down a little bit. I'm thinking this is really going to be the area I'm going to start to have the nose appear. But I also want to try and make sure I've got the the outward sloping shape of the nose. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a tool called Edge Constraint. This will allow me to adjust the positions of the individual vertices in these areas. So I'm going to just move along, selecting each one, and the great thing is it will just constrain my movement along this horizontal line. I can't actually go beyond this, so it just keeps my polygons just that little bit tidier. So what I'll do is I keep going, working my way down, and just gradually bringing the shape of the nose in to probably going to be the point around here above the mouth. There we go. I'm working these along. There we go. That's how we do that. So just do an edge constraint, turn that off. Okay, good stuff. So I think now we're going to move on to the eyes. So I'm just going to make sure to add an eye socket in here. And to do that, I'm going to go back to my edge selections, hold Control, select around there, and then I'm going to connect. Not with 3, so I'm just going to Control Z, options here, and zero out all of these settings left over from the previous. Connect. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now let's move to vertex, and I can put my edge constraint on again here because it will help me out. There we go. Now we need to start linking up these areas here, which are going to connect to the eye socket. So I'm going to use exactly the same methods I was using previously. Go to edge, turn snapping on, check on edging segment, yes I am. And I'm going to add some vertices. So one there, there, and one there. Now jump back over to vertex, turn snapping off, and I can connect these up individually. Great, so now we're left with only 4-sided polygons in this area. And slip around here. Keep my edge constraint on. I'm just going to scale out a little bit. And starting to get a basic eye shape there. Okay, great. Let's move on. Okay, so let's look at adding a bit more detail to the eye and nose area. So I've done a little bit of profiling around the eye socket area, and obviously the longer you spend doing these things, the more accurate they're going to be. So I just want to make sure that they're not too far and aligned with each other. And then I'll select the polygons in the center. And I'll extrude these back. So obviously that will happen instantly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a tiny little bit back to to actually work as a chamfer for when I'm adding my smoothing groups. So let's create that, and then I'll push it back a little bit further from there as well, just to get the polygon out of the way. Tick. And put this creepy looking eye, and I'm actually going to delete that face as well. Okay, so we could also delete these faces here. Well, see if it will be ringing. It won't. I'll have to get in there and select these manually. And there we go, I'll just delete those. And you can see now I've got a reasonable eye socket. So obviously we can spend as much time as we like. And these just shaping the actual eye socket itself. But now we're going to try and work on the nose a little bit. So we thought we were going to have a start of a nose around here. We reprofiled the rough shape of the nose. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through, I'm just going to start to pull it out a little bit. And bring this shape out. Remember, we're only modelling one side of it, so it's easy to get very carried away. Just deselect that one there. I was thinking about where my mouth is going to go. It's going to go between these two here. So have my nose underpinned by this piece here. To fix this along the line. Let's try and profile this a little bit better. And so again, we can add more detail the more we go along. We're going to be able to add some more detail to this nose in a second, so I'm just going to the rough shape in, and then I'll start working on adding detail. Okay, so I've been profiling the nose a little bit, just to try and get that rough shape I want. So now I'm working on a little bit of detail. So I'm going to go back and do another edge loop to just try and add a bit more detail to the nose itself, because obviously at the moment it's a little bit pointy, so we're going to try and add a bit more detail in there and round it off a bit. Using the connect tool, and then we're going to get stuck in there with the polygons and change some of these vertices. We've also got some of these triangles as ever, so let's just actually fix those before we do anything else. So let's turn this on, to edge mode, so vertex, so one there, so one there, back to vertex mode, and then we'll connect these up. Okay, so we've now fixed the irregular sided polygons. So let's turn off the snapping and start shuffling some polys around. See if we can make a more rounded nose shape than we've got at the moment. Grab this whole bottom row here and see if we can just make sure I deselect everything else as well. I'll pull this out. Move it up a little bit. Tidying up to be done here. Sometimes get a bit too close and lose track of where everything is, so occasionally I like to zoom out. Now I'm just looking for the polygons that don't feel quite right, and I'm just making some small adjustments. At the moment we're in a situation where some angles looks okay, and ones it looks like there's a lot more work to be done. So it's just a bit a case of tinkering away until we feel happy with it. A little bit further. The whole nose itself a little bit larger. It's maybe a little bit small at the moment. Okay. Right, so next I'll be adding my nostril. Okay, I've spent a little bit more time profiling the nose, and see now I've got the basic shape there. I'm reasonably happy with that. So what I have done is I've added the symmetry modifier, because it's very easy to kind of lose track of how the shape of the model is going when you're looking at just one half, because particularly with something like a face, it's easy to miss some major part of it which looks a bit strange. So make sure I have the symmetry modifier there that I can just flick on and off and see if you're roughly in the right ballpark as far as what you're trying to get to with the model. So I'm actually reasonably happy with this as it is at the moment. Obviously looks a little bit strange without eyeballs or ears or anything along those lines, and you can see that my neck's probably a little bit fat as well. But these are things that I can sort out a little bit later on. So at the moment, all we're doing is looking into creating the basic profile of the face in 3ds Max. So I'm just going to flick that off again, and we're going to work on putting a nostril in here. So go to polygon, just going to select that individual polygon. I'm using inset, going to deselect this, jump to edge mode, thinking it's the best option here. I think I might just go into vertex mode and shape this out myself. So what I'm thinking here is, as we're going to apply smoothing to this model, I don't really need to worry too much about the basic shape of the nostril. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just extrude this up just ever so slightly. Bring this back. I'm just going to extrude in just a little bit. Hit the plus. Extrude it a bit further away. Ideally, so it's not going to come through the nose. Happy with that. So just apply a mesh smooth to see what this looks like. So I'm actually reasonably happy with that. Maybe do a bit more tidying up on here, maybe push this line up a little bit further. But generally, apart from some issues you've got down the middle with the smoothing groups, I'm reasonably happy with that nose. Okay, so let's get rid of the mesh smooth, turn the symmetry off, and next we'll be looking at the mouth. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the final part of the tutorial sheet now, which is creating the mouth area. Okay, I'm just going to find it down here. Okay, again, we're starting with edge loops, and we're then going to work on to shaping the mouth from there. So let's jump into Max. Okay, so here we are, and I'm firstly going to start by selecting the area that I want to create the mouth. So I'll move to edge mode, and I'm just going to hold control and select around here. Okay, so now I'm going to use the connect tool. You can see we've already started to create that basic mouth shape without doing anything, but I'm also going to create another connect around the outside of this. So still in edge mode, I'm just going to start selecting around this. Okay, great, and we're going to connect. We've got that basic shape of the mouth now. So we'll go about trying to fix these polys, because we've got some 5-sided and we've got some 3-sided. So I'll start by inserting some vertices. And we're going to start doing some connecting as well. Okay, so we don't have any 3-sided polys anymore. I believe I'm still on edge constraint, which I am. Let's deselect that so I can move these out a little bit. Okay, so now we've got the basic shape of the mouth. What we're going to do is select these vertices on the inside here. We can push these back in again. Let's fix that one. And now we have this basic shape of the mouth that we're going to play with. So this is one of those parts of the model that you want to spend a fair amount of time on to get this right. Just going to start moving things around to get that basic shape of the mouth right. Okay, so in this situation you can select the polygons in the mouth and extrude them back if you like, or even bevel them back. So let's bring it to the middle, and we'll just push this back in like that to get it out of the way. Okay, so I'm just continuing work on the mouth here. So what I've done since the end of the last section is I've deleted the side section of the mouth and sorted out some of the polygons that cross over a little bit here. So I'm going to spend a bit of time now just trying to shape the mouth so it looks a little bit more natural than it does at the moment. So I'm just going to be messing around with the vertices for a little while to make sure I'm not selecting anything in the background that I don't want to be. So I'm just going to try and taper the mouth down a little bit better than it has been. It's obviously quite gulping and open at the moment. So I'm not doing anything particularly special here, just spending a bit of time adjusting the vertices to try and make the mouth fit a little bit better. And obviously depending on the model that you're creating, you're going to have very different requirements for this part of the process. Okay, well I could spend quite a bit more time on this, but I'm not going to because you need to see me poking these polygons around. The more time you spend, obviously the better the results. Let's have a little look what this looks like in symmetry mode. Let's see, it's now starting to come together, although slightly scary. We're actually getting that shape of the mouth sorted now, and obviously more work needs to be done on the side of the head here, because you can see when you have the full profile of the face, you probably want to cut away a little bit more here, and a bit more work to be done on the neck. See, we've got some welding issues going on at the back here that we could sort out. Also at the front, but that's just issues with the symmetry modifier and the threshold that we have here. So we need to align down the center of the model with the align tools. Okay, so let's just finish off this ellipse, and I'm just going to use the bevel tool to just give the lips a little bit of fullness. And it's very easy for this to look a bit silly, so we have to be subtle with the tool. Bring these down. we're only going to extrude it just a small amount. Just having a look around. We need to do a bit of tidying up with this after we've finished. Give it a yes, that's okay. And now I'm going to select the vertices here, and I'm going to start some target welding. Okay, so I'm just going to do some target welding so we don't have this gap here on the lips. Just going to work my way around, and this enables to have the lip kind of stick out a little bit, and we still got those extra vertices there without having this edge. Okay. I'm going to select this edge along here. I'll push this up slightly. Okay, so we're just going to do some of the finishing touches now, and I've done a bit more work around the eye, on the nose, and just finalising the lips, just to make sure everything's as I want it to be. And what I'm doing now is going